So the thing is, what excites me is what can I add to improve my legacy? Yeah. What can I do to improve my legacy? That's the number one. And also the money, but legacy number one, yeah. Money is there.
Yeah. Why would George want to fight Anderson now? You know, his legacy isn't what it used to be. Is he realistically someone you would consider fighting as your next opponent?
Not right now, because I have a lot more to lose than to win fighting right now against Anderson Silva.
I think a lot of the signs and a lot of the fans sort of expect that, you know, things are pointing towards you potentially facing the winner of Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov. Is that a fair assessment, and would you be interested in that fight?
I would be interested in that fight. That's a win-win situation.
You know, they're selling you all wolf tickets, people. You're eating them right up.
Hey, pussy, are you still there?
I back. Trust me, I back.
But I'm not impressed by your performance.
You'll do nothing. You'll do nothing. Shut your fucking mouth, you'll do nothing. You'll do fucking nothing. Not one of you'll do nothing.
I'll tell you what, bro. You know, I was out there, I was fighting all the hitters, bro. You ain't fought no hitters.
Come on, guys. It's normal.
I'm not saying I would fight you. I would kill you.
John, do you think I'm just gonna sit there and let you go on? I mean, really?
No, don't be scared, homie.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody. The double champ does what the fuck he wants.
I'm gonna beat you to the living death. I mean, maybe that's your job, but where I come from, you know, people like that get slapped.
That's fucking illegal.
You just shook up the world. How's that feel?
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
Yeah, this is a simulated death match. And you haven't simulated anybody's death yet.
I said it last year. We're not here just to take part. We're here to take over.
What is the game plan going in against him?
The game plan is you go in there, hit him with some good shit, don't get hit, and come home with a pocket full of cash.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Everybody's on steroids. The whole UFC, everybody.
I'm gonna go home tonight. I'm gonna drink a Coors Light. That's a Coors Light because Bud Light won't pay me nothing.
Do you want to be a fighter? That is my question.
Any of you radio personalities think you want smoke? Call me Mr. Chimney. I want smoke.
Yes. What is up? What is up? Mixed Combat Radio family, another daily edition of the show. It's obviously Monday, so you know that means it's review time. We're going to review all of the weekend's actions. But of course, George St. Pierre had to make, headlines this weekend, so we're going to obviously discuss that. Some brief headlines in the news today, but mainly it's review time, as always. And we're going to obviously start as most of the time, I can't say all the time, most of the time, boxing first. Boxing will obviously be first this weekend, or I should say today. And we're going to move the UFC 227 review after all the boxing content, which isn't that much, to be honest, in terms of the news, but definitely a lot of fight cards to talk about. We're going to talk about 3 fight cards in particular in boxing. Obviously, the next-gen Matchroom card, obviously the PBC on Fox card, and Sergey Kovalev losing in dramatic fashion to Eleider Alvarez. Definitely an insane Rob. Yes, for everyone on maybe Patreon might know. Not Patreon. Rob knows because I text him. We are, and obviously I said we're doing studio renovations. You may not see it because this spot in the studio has not changed at all. It is still just me and this desk where the mixer is and everything like that. But over there, where you cannot see it, where usually Santiago is, that is completely different right now. So we're about a third of the way done with renovations for the studio. Basically all the furniture's in right now. Next is going to be all the equipment. And then actually a third, which makes no sense. It's kind of backwards, but we're going to paint the entire studio. We're going to paint it a different color because the color is disgusting. But, yes, so by this time next week, it should be all done. Painting starts Monday, should be done that day. So probably by Tuesday, the studio will be all set and everything like that. And that will allow for us to have a full panel here. We already have probably the room for it. Even though you guys can't see it, we have, enough spot for maybe 3 or 4 different hosts. Rob saying no behind the scenes. Well, there is a behind the scenes video. It's just going to be released to Patreon. Patreon.com/Mixed Combat Radio. Because, I don't want to advertise this shitty studio right now. You're going to wait till it's nice. And then I can advertise it for everyone for free. But to digress from that, because Rob always trying to, you know, fucking swerve the show in another direction, you know, just saying. Come on, Rob. Let's get right to the events. And I was even going to start with the next gen card, you know, to be nice and being a little bit chronological about the boxing events. Maybe I won't, Rob, you know, just saying. Just saying. Maybe not. But I will. Joe Cordina obviously fought Sean Dodd on the Matchroom NXTGEN card over on Sky Sports over there in the UK. We did not get it in the US, but if you want to find links to these fights, you can. They're Daily Motion, other sites out there. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But Joe Cordina was at the top. I would say an easy unanimous decision over Sean Dodd. Clearly levels above Dodd. But some minor points of criticism for Cordina is that in the later round, probably again when he's a little more probably tired, obviously, we... that is very true, Rob. Saying we painting a laughing face emoji in the chat. Good luck making painting a joint effort. No one likes painting. That is true. Painting fucking sucks, but it has to be done. This color is awful. But to digress, Joe Cordina easily, levels above Sean Dodd. But one point of criticism is that when he did get a little bit tired in the later rounds, and I'm using tired in a relative term because obviously his cardio, I would say, held up overall, but I noticed that his footwork diminished as the fight went on. He was allowing himself basically to stay in the pocket. And I think that long term may be something that he needs to fix. Obviously, against the Sean Dodds of the world, he can deal with that. When he's a little bit tired in the legs and he can't move like he did in the early rounds, of course it's no big deal against Dodd. But when he starts getting against higher level opponents, better opponents with better punching power, better durability that can walk through his shots and not really be discouraged by his skill, yeah, we're going to see issues, I think, unless he is able to fix that up. But again, he won basically every round, if not every round. Rob saying he's 8-0. Of course, this is, again, a minor criticism. And it's one that I think he will fix, but it's one that is there. Just because he is early in his career does not mean that he is perfect. Obviously, that is the exact opposite when you imply that he is young in his career. He is imperfect. So therefore, you want to shore up his technique, shore up his flaws. I think maybe a better cardio management, something there. There's something there that needs to be tweaked with, that needs to be fixed with him in this camp, because I think the lack of great footwork throughout the fight is difficult. If you look at Josh Kelly, for example, his cardio is at another level, or at least his cardio management, because his footwork really doesn't diminish as the fight goes on. Just being honest. That is from what I see. Natasha Jonas, man, hold on. This one's for you, Niger, out there. This was tough. But we did get like a new player, obviously, in Viviana Obaniev. Sad music. They really were wanting to give that to Niger. But Natasha Jonas, a Great Britain, one of the best Great Britain amateur fighters to come out recently, I would say, and having a devastating knockout loss to Viviana Obaniev. It's just fascinating to see that happen, because it was obviously unexpected. Try to breaking it down. Natasha Jonas was the better fighter. Technically she was. Rob, don't take criticisms of fighters as me like hating them. I know you do that when I talk about Matchroom fighters, saying who said he wasn't. Every fighter's flawed in the chat. Rob, it's okay. You're right. Every fighter's flawed. And then it is my job to then talk about those flaws. Talk about the positives and talk about the flaws, obviously. Come on. Don't wave the flag so much. But Natasha Jonas, I think, again, she was just the better boxer. She was, setting up her punches better. But Viviana, she just did not care about the power, didn't care about the setups from Natasha Jonas, didn't worry about getting countered, and just pressured her. It was kind of ugly at times, but it was obviously effective. You could tell that the power was affecting Jonas far more than obviously the opposite way around. It's just, an upset like this, you really wonder what's going to be done here for Natasha going forward. Is it something that she can bounce back from, both mentally and physically, and just overall career-wise? I mean, it's hard enough in today's age, when you lose that O as a highly touted prospect, to really bounce back from that and gain that luster back. It's very hard, let alone for women's boxers. So just long-term, I wonder how she's going to bounce back, both from a technical perspective, because she was leaving her lead hand down, allowing herself to get caught with the left hook from Viviana. And just overall, her defense was kind of poor. Whenever she would throw her lead right hand, she would drop her left hand every time. Viviana also, I will say, focused much more on getting outside foot placement, and maybe something that she didn't do on purpose or consciously. Not just saying we're talking about the Jonas fight. Yes, we are. Shout out to you, Nyjah. It's okay. It's okay. But I think Viviana was able to continually get outside foot placement to land that right hand at will, and Natasha really didn't seem to have either the power or either the technique to really keep her at bay with just pure aggressiveness, and it was just kind of surprising to see, to put it lightly. A couple other fights I want to make note of before we move on. Anthony Sims Jr., a U.S.-based light heavyweight prospect, undefeated, was just picked up by Matchroom USA, was flown over here to do a fight. I don't know what the thought process was for that, but picked up a good win. I did not see the fight, but Rob told me that he looked really good. I believe him on that. Daner Lisanov, who obviously gold medalist, Olympic gold medalist, beat Josh Kelly in the Olympics, one that obviously Josh Kelly highly touted. I heard he did not do that well. Again, did not see the fight. Have not been able to find a link for that one. So if you do, send me that, please. That'd be amazing. Moving on to the next fight card of the day on Saturday. Again, chronological. Rob St. Jones went backwards in straight lines. Another great point. I mean, her exits were just poor. I don't know if... Obviously, that's a technique that you can fix, but I don't know if she does it. Some fighters are just not that great, and maybe she isn't that great. That does happen sometimes, where you have this fighter that was amazing, amazing talent in amateurs, and they just don't translate to the pros. That just does happen, absolutely. Moving on to the next, though, event, Rob saying Lisanov looked average. Yeah, I can see probably why. I don't think he's ever looked fantastic. He doesn't have that flair to him, to use sort of a pro wrestling term. He doesn't have that. But moving on to the Fox card for PBC, Devin Alexander versus Andre Berto, a very controversial decision for Andre Berto, split decision for him. Scorecards of 115, 112, 114, 113, and 112, 115 for Andre Berto. I've watched this fight a couple times. I do think it's closer than maybe what some people are saying in terms of robbery, but Devin Alexander should have won this. I think he overall just landed better and more shots throughout the fight and picked up more rounds. In terms of just boxing, Andre Berto was really only looking for counters and to really duck under Alexander's shots, go to the body, and then maybe work a left hook or right hook up top in that combination. And while Andre Berto definitely seemed to be the heavier hitter of the two, his shots seemed to have more effect. Alexander should have won this, but I wouldn't go as far as saying a robbery. I think Andre Berto, controversial definitely, but Andre Berto, he made it competitive. If you don't think that Andre Berto was competitive in this fight, then I don't know what fight you were watching. And I'll be honest, just this whole PBC event, I wasn't that hyped on. To be quite honest, the boxing media said I had it 115, 113 Berto. Yeah, I think that's completely respectable. I might disagree with you on that, but I'm not going to sit here and yell that's a robbery. And obviously, when we get to the UFC card, we're going to talk about that a lot with Demetrius Johnson versus Henry Cejudo. Moving on to the co-main event, Peter Quillen defeats Jalen Love, unanimous decision. Basically won every round, beat the shit off of him. Digressing very quickly to the Alexander Berto fight, because Dwayne made a good point. Alexander stepped off the gas. I don't know if he stepped off the gas or the body work from Andre Berto became a factor. I think that might be a possible factor that we are sort of overlooking, maybe, for those that are thinking that Alexander either won or vice versa. By way of ESPN, Mike Garcia has, this is breaking news apparently from Rob. I'll get to that in the news section. Rob. I see it though. But let me stay with the fight cards and the reviews of the fights, and then we move it to the news. But Quillin, I'll put it this way, compared to his last fight that was not televised, that I only saw like a few minutes on YouTube, from somebody's phone, he looked a lot better. He looked a lot more composed, a lot more confident. That is good. And plus, I mean, the power and the size was just on his side. Jalen Love looked like the smaller guy that really didn't have the punch to keep Peter Quillin off him, or the skill, to be honest. I mean, it's Jalen Love. Is Peter Quillin back? I think we should still wait on that. He is still, 35, 36 years old. He is obviously past his prime. But he looked good. I mean, he won, again, arguably every round. And when he did have Jalen Love hurt, even though he couldn't get him out of there, there was some shade of the Peter Quillin of old. And that was kind of nice to see. Moving on to the next fight, Sergey Lepinets versus Eric Bonet. Lepinets, oh, man, he did not look good in that fight, to be honest. To the point where I even thought, like, Eric Bonet, and I'll be completely honest about it, I wasn't 100% watching this fight. We had the UFC prelims on as well on that time. Man, I thought Bonet almost won it, to be honest, and the scorecards were like 98, 99 towards Sergey Lepinets. So I don't know really where he goes. We will get to him later in the news. Actually, I'll just cut to it right now because it is topical. It's been news that was just floated out. Let me get to it very quickly as I sit here and be quiet. Here we go. Adrian Broner versus Sergey Lepinets possible for the fall. Per Lepinets' manager. I don't know. I'm not hyped on Lepinets at all. I think he has looked poor in his last few fights. I mean, even the fight he won the title against, who was it? Kondo? No, who was his name? It was a Japanese fighter. Anyways, he looked poor in that fight, to be honest. I don't think he is the guy that a lot of the boxing hipsters were making him out to be. Eric Rose is saying Bonet makes everyone look bad. Maybe. But even guys like Chris Algieri, who I think received 1/10 of the hype from the hipsters that Sergey Lepinets did, he did fairly well against Eric Bonet, I would say. But again, that's just maybe my opinion on the matter. But moving to the next fight, Luis Collazo versus Bryant Perella. Great sort of bounce back fight for Luis Collazo, but it's nice to see him again. A guy that's been inactive, been dealing with injuries, been up and down in the last few fights of his career, trading wins and losses. Going up against a guy like Bryant Perella, who a lot of people thought, being a 6'1" welterweight, he might have something. He might have like a Jamal James for a period of time, Robert Easter, those very tall, lanky fighters for their division. You can't help but think, they have all the physical tools to be a great boxer. And Bryant Perella, I think, was in here to really beat Luis Collazo. Luis Collazo was here to sort of put Bryant Perella over, in my opinion. And Luis Collazo had none of that, man. He beat the shit out of Bryant Perella from post to post, battered him. Perella just could not get away from that left hand. I think he was so used to being the southpaw versus the orthodox fighter going up against another southpaw. Man, it was brutal. Eric Rose is saying Collazo was a warrior. He was hurting that kid. I agree. Boxing Idiot saying best fight on the card. It was the best fight on the card. Easily the best fight on the card. Collazo, what should he do next? I wouldn't mind an Andre Berto rematch. Lamont Peterson's out there. Lucas Pontici just retired, that would have been an interesting fight. But there's definitely guys out there for Luis Collazo. It's definitely the guys that, 7 to 15 ranking in the welterweight division. That's what you want to look at, in my opinion. But nothing higher than that. Still nothing higher than that. He should not get a Spence fight or a Danny Shawn fight next. He needs another fight, in my opinion. The boxing editor saying Perella had a good jab and nothing else. But it's not even that. Like, his jab had no authority and power behind it. I don't know. Next fight on the card, Marcus Brown versus Lenin Castillo, with Marcus Brown getting knocked down in round 5. Man, what happened to the Marcus Brown that demolished Thomas Williams? Where did that Marcus Brown go? Obviously, he's been dealing with his domestic violence issues, to put it lightly. He was lined up for a Sergey Kovalev fight. Probably lost out on a big paycheck there. And came in and really laid a goose egg with Castillo in a form of a fight that I could never watch again. Like, I remember I was, watching all the fights again in the past couple days. This was a fight that I didn't need to watch again. I was good. Nah. You can't get me again with that shit. I don't know what Brown was thinking. Had no sense of, urgency, but no sense of purpose in there, it seemed like. He was just in there just to be in there. It looked like he was in there for a sparring session. And you know what? I've seen Marcus Brown spar in the gym live. I've been in his gym. He spars with more urgency than what he did right there against Lenin Castillo. Man. Eric Rose is saying Castillo used to be a welterweight too, I'm pretty sure. Man, that's crazy if he is, because he was kind of a big guy, I'll be honest. To be a light heavyweight, damn. But I don't know what's up with Marcus Brown. I think a lot of question marks are still around him. When you look at fights against, who was the guy's name? I can never pronounce his name, but Hot Rod, that was his nickname. Jury's still out on the guy, to be honest. Fights I did not see on the card, but I will at least make note of. The Alicia Napoleon fight against Hannah Rankin. I heard that was a fun back-and-forth fight, with Napoleon easily winning. Brandon Figueroa picked up a first-round knockout. Richard Coleman picked up a second-round knockout. Gary Russell, not Gary Russell Jr., one of the other Gary Russells, got a first-round knockout that I did see. That looked pretty good, but it was 25 seconds. And Joey Spencer picked up a KO under 2 rounds. Shout out to Joey Spencer. But yes, that is all the fights for the PBC on Fox card. Moving over to sort of the marquee boxing event of the weekend. Sergey Kovalev versus Eleider Alvarez and Dmitry Bivol versus Isaac Chilemba. Wow. Sergey Kovalev getting knocked out in the 7th round against Eleider Alvarez in a comeback performance from Eleider Alvarez was, even though, just to remind everyone, I predicted Eleider Alvarez would win. Just saying.
I want smoke.
Just saying. I did not see it going that way. Not at all. No. I thought maybe Kovalev could get outworked, could get pieced up because his defense is lacking. But I didn't even think Alvarez had that power in him. Even though we saw him knock out Lucien Boutte. Lucien Boutte was a guy moving up a division, was past his prime. This was just shocking. Kyle saying, let's not forget, Matt called it. Damn right. I called it. But yeah, I think Alvarez, one, it was interesting because in the first few rounds, you could tell he was discouraged. You can tell when we did the live fight chat, we were mentioning it. I thought Alvarez was going to get knocked out as the fight was progressing. I thought Kovalev had his accuracy down almost instantly, and that was a concern. Alvarez had to sort of work into his rhythm, get his accuracy down late and his range down late. And you could tell that he was bothered by the power of Kovalev. But as the rounds progress, and if you watch it maybe a couple more times, you see it better, I would say. Alvarez started getting on the inside a little bit easier and a little more frequently. And when that started happening, Kovalev started missing shots. Alvarez started landing shots. And it only took, that one combination, where Kovalev darted in, missed both shots, and got countered with that right hand, went down, and then Alvarez swarmed him. Put a storm on him. That was good. And he just didn't let up, landed combinations on the inside, landed that huge left hook, that right hand on the inside as well. And he just got him out of there. The great thing about Alvarez that we saw there is that he definitely has that finishing instinct, that when he sees the guy hurt, he gets him the fuck out of there. And, I mentioned it on the Championship Rounds podcast, which is our Patreon-only podcast, patreon.com/Mixed Combat Radio. What's next for Kovalev? That was a question that was asked by, I believe it was Sam or Drew. What's next for Kovalev? I don't know. I really don't. The flaw that Kovalev has in his game, the inside flaw where he just seems like a newborn deer with his hands flailing out there trying to land punches. I don't know how you fix that for a guy that is so, in the tooth in his career where, can you teach an old dog new tricks? I don't know if you can teach Kovalev a new trick for this one. Maybe this is his kryptonite. And guys that can work on the inside, that can maybe take his punch, and that can also match him for technique. That was another thing. It wasn't like Kovalev was the far superior technical boxer in there. The fundamentals were on Alvarez's side, both from defensive perspective and from an offensive perspective. Alvarez is the more fundamental boxer. Kovalev is the sniper from long range and mid range. He does very well. If you don't play into that game, you can beat him. And a Shabransky and whoever he fought in his last fight, Milken or some other Eastern European guy, those were not fights that can prepare you for Eleider Alvarez. A technical, sound boxer with great athleticism, decent power, and he showed that. So props to Eleider Alvarez. Salute to him. Reminder that I picked Alvarez, and I believe I'm still the only media member that picked him. I'm not going to say that, because I know a couple other people did him. But in terms of, I'm using this term very loosely, prominent podcasters, I think I'm the only one that picked him. Rob said, you see Alvarez homecoming at the airport was amazing. No, I did not. Please send me a link to that. That would be cool to see. Especially if it's like a Twitter link. That would be perfect, because I can play those on the show without worrying about, the C word. Copyright. But to digress to some boxing news, actually that was it. Because, I will say this. Even though I believe I talked about it, but I forget what I talked about off air and on air. Jared Miller versus Thomas Domick. Definitely sad fight. That's been sort of rumored, and multiple sources telling ESPN this for the October 6th Chicago debut Matchroom USA /DAZN card. Oh, it's not just saying there's instant link. That'll work too. That'll work as well. But digressing, let's get to the UFC event and fights. Prospect saying, Matt, did you mention the Big Baby fight? I just did. Maybe you guys aren't there yet. But yes, Joe Miller, Big Baby Miller versus Thomas Domick, which is a, no comment. It's a shit fight. That's my comment. Yeah. Moving on to the UFC event, a.k.a. this is that portion of the show where we move into MMA, no longer boxing. I do apologize. Casey Cobra saying that's a trash card for DAZN. Definitely not the greatest card. And I'm also hearing that the Cindy Serrano versus Katie Taylor fight is being moved from that date to the 20th card, the 28th card. I forget what date that one is. But that's what I'm hearing. So that's probably the best fight on the card being moved. Plus, it's competing now with Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Conor McGregor. Good luck. CMD Boxing Report. Does anyone see Tim Tszyu? They said his fight is under investigation. No way. That is amazing. Hold on. So I didn't even want to mention that fight because I did watch it. And I I think I covered that card, the Billy Dib, Tevin Farmer, on the Friday show, by the way, everyone, because that card obviously happened on Friday morning. If it's under investigation, good, because that was not a finish. Like, I'm not going to say it was a phantom punch, but yeah, that was weird to put it lightly, to be quite honest. You know. Oh, well, hold on. Let me get this Instagram video of Eleider Alvarez by way of Latin Sports, by way of the Boxing Voice, as they reposted it. Thank you, the Boxing Voice. Hold on, let me get it over here so you guys can see it. Okay, that was. I'm so sorry for the sound, ladies and gentlemen. That was very loud. I apologize if I broke anyone's speakers. But that is a great sort of coming home scene there for Eleider Alvarez, as he should, because man, fantastic performance for him. But moving over to the UFC card, as I said, UFC 227, TJ Dillashaw versus Cody Garbrandt 2. Man. I don't even know where to begin for this one. I'll begin at the top, work my way down. TJ Dillashaw versus Cody Garbrandt. The second fight, I mean, the first round knockout, under 5 minutes. I felt like I everything we thought that could go wrong for Cody, that he wouldn't fix up, that he was too emotional, and TJ was too skilled, too good, he had too much of a game plan, all that came true. TJ Dillashaw literally caught Cody Garbrandt with the same punch 3 times in a row because Cody kept making the same mistake. He would feint the left hook and drop it, and then throw the right hand, and he would get caught with the right hand every time he would make that stupid left hook feint. Every time. Cody Garbrandt's overall just hand placement was wrong. It allowed him to be hittable continually. The constant stance switching and feints from Dillashaw obviously confused Cody Garbrandt, and plus the emotion. The second TJ Dillashaw was hurt at all, Cody threw out all technique, all thinking, all strategy, all game plan, if he even had one, out the door, out the window. And he was rushing at TJ, and he got clipped, and he got hurt, and TJ was just better at it. TJ kept up the game plan strategy within him, swarming Cody Garbrandt. You know, and I just, you know, salute to Cody Garbrandt. Let me, I had it somewhere. I just want to play one little thing from good old TJ Dillashaw, because I mean, he was right about it. This was absolutely true.
Do you think this is finally over between the two of you? This whole feud, this whole rivalry?
I said I was going to ruin his career at 35s. You know, I'm here to stay. I'm the king at 135s. I don't plan on seeing him again.
And he's right. I don't think that Cody Garbrandt's going to be fighting TJ Dillashaw ever again. There's no reason for it. Was never a controversial decision. Nothing of that nature. It's just is what it is. Unfortunately, it's sad to see how Cody Garbrandt was mismanaged and mispromoted, and now is really, let's be honest, out of any sort of title contention for the foreseeable future. Just is. But TJ, I mean, he made a claim right now for being one of the best bantamweights, if not the best bantamweight of all time. It is him or Dominic Cruz, and there's no one else. And I know what's next for TJ. Marlon Moraes has been mentioned. Rafael Sunsel has been mentioned. Waiting for Dominic Cruz has been mentioned. And obviously Henry Cejudo has been mentioned. which we're going to get to Henry Cejudo in a bit. Henry Cejudo should not be on that list of who TJ should be fighting next. Eric Rosas, I mean, making an obvious point, but I think I maybe should say it. The UFC wanted Cody to win. That's why he got the immediate rematch. Absolutely true. You know, for those that maybe aren't aware of the favoritism by the UFC often, Cody was favored, absolutely. Now, for Rafael Sansa, Marlon Moraes are waiting for Dominic Cruz. I think the best option out of the three is to wait for Dominic Cruz. If I had to pick, if I didn't have to worry about the money or anything, I say wait for Dominic Cruz. But he's probably going to be coming off an injury, or he is coming off an injury. Probably want to tune up. I would put the Sunstyle fight in there. Make a rubber match. I mean, they each have one win apiece. You know, it's obviously not the biggest selling fight, but to put Marlon Moraes in there, man, like that is doing a Sunstyle dirty. A Sunstyle being one of, if not, I mean, again, talking about greatest bantamweights of all time, a Sunstyle should be on that talking list, on that top 10 that we talk about for the greatest bantamweights of all time. Yet he's never had a UFC title shot. Never. Oh, Anthony. Anthony, come on. What do you have against the Sunstyle, Anthony? I see you. By the way, Anthony, I've renovated my studio, partly. So whenever you want to actually come in studio and do the show with me, just let me know. Anthony's saying, let's get some fresh matchups. But a Sunstyle beat Marlon Moraes. Like, it just makes no sense. We can't talk about how the UFC is does nothing merit-based and how that's not how they should be running things. This is exactly one of those instances where now the fans, the consumer base, the base that really should be keeping the UFC accountable, even though it should be the media, the consumers are the one that should keep the UFC accountable, and they're not keeping them accountable here. They will allow the Moraes fight when he just lost to a Sunstyle, who has a win over TJ Dillashaw. Like, I understand the idea of getting fresh matchups, but that's a promoting talking point, in my opinion. What's the best fight right now? The best fight, if it's not Dominic Cruz, it's Rafael Sunstyle. It's not Marlon Moraes. Yes, it's new, but that doesn't mean it's better. New does not always mean better, in my opinion. But, I mean, it is one of those things where the UFC are going to do what they do. Eric Rose is saying he doesn't move the needle. None of these guys move the needle. None of them. You think Marlon Moraes moves the needle more than Rafael Sunstyle? Really? In terms of pay-per-view buys? Come on. Anthony Walker saying, I'd have it Sunstyle as an alternate, but Moraes has had insane finishes over top contenders. Jimmy Rivera's won. I mean, you look at the body of work that Sunstyle's put in, and he's never got a title shot. I can't. I'm not okay with that. I'm not. Anthony Walker saying, plus they made the mistake of letting him eliminate undefeated Jimmy Rivera. Yes, and then they threw Marlon Moraes after that Rivera win against a Sunstyle, and Sunstyle won. And now he's not getting his just due. I just don't think it's right. I just don't. But, I mean, it's one of those things where if you're thinking from a business perspective, again, moving back to what Eric said about moving the needle, you put TJ Dillashaw versus Marlon Moraes or TJ Dillashaw versus Rafael Sunstyle, it does the same pay-per-view buy rate, in my opinion. The pay-per-view buy rate's not different at all. TV viewership, if they throw it on ESPN in the first quarter next year, it doesn't do anything different. Throw on ESPN Plus. You know, Marlon Moraes doesn't bring in thousands of more subscribers than a Sunstyle. That just is not a factor here, I would say. You know, it's not a case of where, let's say, obviously, Khabib McGregor's happening. Let's say that fight's not happening. Khabib still has options of Dustin Poirier and McGregor. What are you going to take? Or Tony Ferguson. I throw Tony Ferguson back in there. Fuck it. You're going to take the fight that's the biggest money, and that's greatly the biggest money, right? That's obviously McGregor in that case. For our Sunstyle Moraes, there's not an obvious breadwinner there. There's not an obvious red panty night fight there, in my opinion. That's why I think that point is moot. Like, it doesn't matter that he doesn't move the needle for Sunstyle. Moraes doesn't move the needle. TJ Dillashaw doesn't move the fucking needle. Are we forgetting that? Like, TJ is not this big name here. Like, again, we haven't seen the pay-per-view buy rate for this fight yet. It's going to be low. Extremely low. These were two rematches that really, in my opinion, had no casual heat at all behind it. It had hardcore heat, but that's it. Let's be honest. But just to move on, table all that. TJ Dillashaw, fantastic performance. Ruined Cody Garbrandt 135 and is easily, if not the best bantamweight of all time, the second best bantamweight of all time. So salute to him. Can't wait to see what is next for him. Definitely making a case for pound, top qualityness. You know, when you talk about DC and it was Demetrius Johnson, John Jones, TJ Dillashaw should start being mentioned with those guys. His technique is on. It's on a different level. There's no one that fights like TJ Dillashaw in MMA right now, or at high level MMA. Anthony Walker saying Mariah and Sun Sao will both do trash numbers. Oh, by the way, definitely go read Anthony's articles on Sherdog. I love the one about the right way to do a rematch, the wrong way to do a rematch, how that was personified in these two matchups. And you're right. You were exactly right, Anthony. Like, we saw the exact reason why when we get to this co-main. But Mariah does not deserve a shot above Sun Sao because he lost to Sun Sao. That's why. Just being honest, Anthony. But Henry Cejudo defeating Demetrius Johnson, the longest reigning UFC champion of all time, via split decision, 48-47, split cards. On fight night, or live on the fight, I thought the fight was atrocious. I thought Henry Cejudo won. Watching it a few more times, I think the fight's better than how I initially criticized it as much. Definitely still not a great title fight in my opinion. For winning fight of the night, for Ariel Helwani to say it's the greatest UFC flyweight title fight of all time, or fights like Demetrius Johnson and Jaw Dotson won, makes no sense to me, to be completely honest. It is what it is, but just to table that, because I think that's been a ridiculous narrative thrown out by media and the UFC that this is some great fight. It wasn't. It was an okay fight. Nothing great about it. They had two great fighters in it, but two great fighters does not mean a great fight. Henry Cejudo, though, the more times I watch it, the more I think he lost, but I don't think it's a robbery. I know that really hasn't been a term thrown out there by people. Even like the fanboys in chat, in the YouTube comment section or Instagram comment section, like, you don't see those fanboys throwing out the robbery word that much. So that's good. I think everyone knows that it was controversial in some form or fashion, but let's be honest, neither guy really took the fight, in my opinion. That's what leaves this controversy here. I think Demetrius Johnson at no point had any sense of urgency, and obviously it's now come out. Let me show you the headline, everyone. Demetrius Johnson thinks he suffered a torn LCL or a broken foot in his loss. That would obviously explain a vast majority of what happened, of the Demetrius Johnson we saw in there, if this is the case. I mean, obviously, if you have a torn LCL and a broken foot, you can't move the way you did. You can't have the same explosion. That's obvious. So a lot of my criticisms on fight day or fight night Demetrius Johnson post this fight, I take most of them back, because I think there's a lot of extenuating circumstances, obviously there's injuries, and B, I now kind of think he won. And while I keep sort of going back and forth with the first and fifth round, I think those are swing rounds in my opinion. I think second, third, and fourth are all clear in who won them, and it's one of those things where when you leave these fights that are so close, nothing really dramatic happens. Both guys are kind of staring at each other, throwing a lot of feints and a lot of leg kicks and a couple takedowns here and there that do nothing. Yeah, I think you're going to get sort of these controversial decisions that can go either way. But salute to both guys. Obviously, Demetrius Johnson is still the best flyweight of all time, still one of the best fighters of all time, and definitely should get an immediate rematch against Henry Cejudo. If anyone deserves an immediate rematch, it is Demetrius Johnson. And if the UFC makes if the UFC gives Cody Garbrandt an immediate rematch after 0 title defenses and losing via being knocked out, and then they don't do it for Demetrius Johnson, who was literally the longest reigning champion in their entire company's history, and lost it via a very controversial decision, and was hurt during it, that would be questionable in my opinion, to put it lightly. Now for Henry Cejudo, I think he improved drastically. I think his sense of distance, his timing, his overall striking fundamentals seem to be better in terms of just hand placement, overall footwork. He wasn't chasing Demetrius Johnson as much as I thought he might in this fight. And I just think he made a lot of drastic improvements. And now being the first Olympic gold medalist to also be a UFC champion. Salute to him. Salute to him. And obviously, if he beats Demetrius Johnson in a second fight, the UFC needs to put a lot of money into him because he is potentially a gateway to either the Mexican-American market or the Mexican market, and the UFC has never capitalized on that market. Oh, Anthony, don't say that. Saying, don't be shocked if they use the DJ injuries to push the super fight through. Let's not talk about that. Let's just ignore that. Renato Moicano versus Cub Swanson. Moicano defeating Cub Swanson via rear naked choke in the first round. Knocked down Cub Swanson via a jab. Moicano looked good, and I just want to say there's not really much to talk about this fight. It was rather quick, and Cub is just obviously past his prime. Moicano, a big featherweight who's in his prime. Great striking, great grappling. You know, it just was kind of obvious what was going to happen here. And exactly what I think most people, if not everyone, thought was going to happen, happened. But again, that post-fight display of respect between both those guys, fantastic. I'm going to be skipping around some fights here, to be honest. Thiago Santos versus Kevin Holland, fantastic fight. Both guys back and forth. Kevin Holland's explosive grappling and jiu-jitsu was rather impressive to see from such a young fighter. Obviously, I forget who he's trained by for Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I remember it being a highly touted name. Maybe Anthony might tell me in the chat. Thiago Santos winning. One of those fights, though, where I think because Kevin Holland is UFC debut, we really don't know much about him. It wasn't a win-win situation. It was a lose-lose situation for Thiago Santos. But I think he obviously showed that he is still the superior fighter. His kicking game is probably one of the best in all of MMA in terms of his Muay Thai kicking arsenal. Fantastic stuff there from Thiago Santos and Kevin Holland. Back and forth affair. Pedro Munoz versus Brett Johns. Great back and forth fight. Pedro Munoz defeating Brett Johns via unanimous decision. Definitely go watch that one. And the last fight I'm going to talk about, Alex Perez versus Jose Torres. Probably still the best fight of the weekend. Both guys going back and forth in an insane one-rounder. Perez throwing... Anthony saying, sorry, I missed the question you had for me. Kevin Holland for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Who is he trained under? I remember it being a very highly touted Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu name in the industry. I just forget who it was. But to digress, Alex Perez throwing 170 strikes in 3.5 minutes and landing 110. Insane stuff. Knocked out Jose Torres. Jose Torres, a follower of us on Instagram, salute to you. Coming to see you back. Perez looked phenomenal, though. His Muay Thai was on point. His standing elbows were brutal. And plus, just the composure he had was something to really behold for a guy that is that young in his career and that obviously early in the night. But great fights overall. Some last sort of news before we head out of here. Obviously, if you do not know, now you do. The Bellator welterweight Royal Grand Prix is finally announced in terms of the bracket, who will be fighting who. Oh, and it's perfect. It is perfect. Douglas Lima versus Andrei Korshchev. Amazing. Neiman Gracie versus Ed Ruth. Oh, fucking yes. Yes. That's going to be a grappling display of just perfection. You have Ed Ruth, one of the best collegiate wrestlers of the last probably 20 years. Neiman Gracie, probably one of the best sort of offshoots, or descendants, you can say, of the last, I would say, probably 10 years as well. Rory McDonald versus John Fitch. I'll be honest. John Fitch is going to get brutalized in that fight. Lorenz Larkin versus some guy in a alternate fight. And the last but not least, in the quarterfinal matchup, the last quarterfinal matchup I'm going to mention, which you are obviously seeing on YouTube already, Paul Daly versus Michael Venom Page.
I want smoke.
Yes. This is amazing. Eric Rose is saying, can't wait for MVP versus Lima. That's probably what we're going to get. And probably Rory McDonald versus Ed Ruth, in my opinion. Rory McDonald is probably going to win that fight. Douglas Lima versus MVP. I might pick MVP. I don't know. We could get Rory McDonald versus MVP in the final. And if MVP beats Rory McDonald, if MVP goes through Paul Daly, Douglas Lima, and Rory McDonald in one tournament, I'm not going to say a star is born, but a star is born. He will instantly, I think, become something, a commodity that Bellator has to circle the wagons around, because he will be their centerpiece. If he runs through this tournament, he will be the centerpiece Bellator has been waiting for forever. He's already a viral sensation that I think boxing fans like, kickboxing fans know, UFC fans know, MMA fans know. Everyone in the combat sports realm knows who Michael Venom Page is. And people that are casual sports fans have seen his clips online all the time. Have seen him dance, do the Emmanuel Augustus nowadays, the drunken master. It's going to be interesting to see what happens here. That is fire in the booth, as they say over there in the UK. Insane stuff. Brett Okamoto breaking. Joseph Benavidez versus Ray Borg added to the UFC 229 October 6th card. First reported by Damon Martin, not Brett Okamoto. Okamoto pointing out that the Brooklyn court issued order of protection for Borg and McGregor's plea deal, McGregor being on that card, mandating that he not communicate with him or be around him. So that'll be interesting to see, obviously, how they deal with a guy who basically has a restraining order against the biggest star of the sport. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for today's show. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you loved it. Casey Cobra saying Bellator is still on Paramount 2. Better platform for MVP to get popular in the USA. I have no idea how you're basing that metrics off of. Bellator. Paramount Network is trash. Utter trash. Anthony saying, I know you well off topic anyway, but I can't find the audio right now. But he trains out of Texas. Forget who it was then. Anyways, that is it. See y'all tomorrow, same time as always. Yes, a bunch of equipment is coming in on Wednesday. I don't know if all of the equipment is coming in on Wednesday, but a lot of it. So we could have callers as soon as Wednesday or as late as this weekend. I know I keep saying that, but it will happen. Oh my God, I apologize. That's right, I didn't get to the news that Rob has been sending me. I've just been on point. Let me get to the news, because Rob over here, by way of ESPN breaking it and then Michael Benson copying it. Mike Garcia has been ordered to defend his IBF title against Mantor Richard Comey, which we already knew. He will likely vacate the belt, which is not surprising. It is what it is, ladies and gentlemen. Earl Spence versus Mike Garcia. Yay. Amazing. Mikey vacating belts is nothing new nowadays, I feel like. But hey, we're in this day where he'd rather fight Earl Spence and get knocked out than fight Vasily Lomachenko and potentially unify an entire division. Can't blame him. It is what it is. Go get that check, right? Go get that check. But anyways, Matt Hunter MCR, all platforms for me. Mixed Combat Radio, all platforms for the show. live Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. in the UK. Podcast from iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio. On iHeartRadio, by the way, we are called MCR Podcast. I don't know how I can change that because they won't let me change it. But just so you know, be back tomorrow. Hope everyone has a great day. Peace.